Hi there, my name is Laura Valdez. I am sorry that I couldn't be there in person, but I still wanted to be able to share with you all via video if possible, so hopefully this will work out. I just want to tell you a little bit about my experience with abortion, and that begins about 7 years ago when my husband and I got pregnant with our first child, a baby girl who we would name Eliana. At 20 weeks along, everything seemed normal. We had a routine ultrasound in which a cleft lip was seen. So we were referred to a specialist. My husband Zach and I went in for that ultrasound. It was an advanced ultrasound with full anatomy scan. And the doctor came into the room to review everything with us after the scan. She gravely explained that our baby had countless anomalies, so many in fact that she didn't think she would survive to birth. She had seen it before, and she explained that our baby girl likely had trisomy 13 or trisomy 18. She thought from her experience that it looked more like trisomy 18. So being that my husband and I don't have any medical background, we listened intently as she just kind of explained everything to us about this disorder and how serious it is. She explained that Eliana, if she survived to birth at all, would have no quality of life whatsoever. She had holes in her heart, spina bifida, cleft lip and palate, club foot, fluid surrounding her brain, the result of which, the fluid, would be, she said, so severe that she would never smile, never feed herself, or have any quality of life whatsoever. She said she would have no awareness of her surroundings. In her exact words, these are not like children with Down syndrome who can have some form of independence. There are no Special Olympics for these children. That's what she said. And then she finished up by telling us that we only had 2 weeks left to legally abort in the state of Georgia, and that she recommended we would make that appointment quickly, or that we should make that appointment quickly. It was a whirlwind of information. It was a lot to process, but through tears we explained that we would not be taking that route. We would keep our baby girl until God decided to take her from us. And as long as he gave her to us, we would try and cherish that time. So whether that was only in the womb or for a few minutes after birth, we would accept that. And so then she proceeded to explain our options after that to officially diagnose trisomy 18. She mentioned that we could do an amniocentesis, which does have a risk of miscarriage. So we decided not to take that route because the results were not going to change the course of action that we were taking anyway. So we opted to take a blood test. The blood test would take 10 days. So that's what we did. And after 10 incredibly difficult days full of far too much reading, terrifying Google results about trisomy 18, she called with the results. Our baby girl did not have trisomy 18. We were told, but she still felt that there was a good chance she wouldn't survive to birth based on all of the anomalies that she saw. The weeks that followed were spent researching and meeting countless specialists to prepare us for what was to come when she would be born. Abortion was mentioned repeatedly. Even after it was no longer legal in the state of Georgia, it was still mentioned to us by various doctors. One radiologist came in to give us some results and and asked us if we had both had jobs. We said that we did, and she then explained that Eliana was going to require extra care and that we should really consider whether or not keeping her would be best for both of our careers. Another specialist explained that her cleft lip, she thought in the imaging that the cleft lip looked like it went up the side of her nose up into her eye. She thought it was a massive cleft. And she, in her words, Eliana would be hard to look at and difficult to love. Even as I say these things, I don't know how we got through it without punching someone, to be honest. But in the end, our sweet Eliana was born at 35 weeks via C-section. Our beautiful and precious baby girl weighed 5 pounds. She didn't need any bracing on her feet, which they had told us were so twisted that she would have to wear braces for months. There were other things they got wrong, such as she had no damage from the fluid on her brain. which later we did find out is incredibly common with spina bifida. Kids with spina bifida typically have hydrocephalus, which is the fluid on the brain that it rarely causes any serious cognitive impairment. So it was good to know that. I wish we had known it before. Now for Eliana's full accurate diagnosis, she was born with spina bifida, and it has caused a complete inability for her to move her legs from the waist down. She did have surgery on her back the day after she was born. A shunt was placed a month later to help drain spinal fluid. 2 months after that, she required heart surgery to close 2 small holes in her heart. And 2 months after that, she had a surgery on her lip to repair the cleft. Genetic testing revealed that Eliana does have DeGeorge syndrome. She's missing a very small portion of her 22nd chromosome, which genetics teams believe has caused everything else that she has going on. Our Eliana is now 6 years old. She is the most loving little girl you could meet. She's learning to read, and she loves to tell stories. Lately, she's been Batman in most of them. She has featured herself as Batman usually. The first year of her life was incredibly difficult, and we've had difficult moments, of course, since then. But the years have been that of a very happy little girl who takes semi-frequent trips to the hospital. Looking at Eliana, you would never guess now that she was the same girl that we discussed in that room 7 years ago. The initial diagnosis, which was so confidently given by our doctor, is a far cry from the truth. And I shudder to think of how many expectant mothers go through something similar and trust those words, which are not always correct. Something I wish I'd realized during my pregnancy is that these doctors rarely, if ever, see a baby once it's born. They don't see the baby through to birth, even if the parents do decide not to abort. They only see the fetus in the womb and the problems that that fetus has. And and they'll make their diagnosis, and there's no system in place for them to see the baby afterwards and then correct themselves if they had been wrong about a certain diagnosis, or to consider that maybe the things that they believe are not accurate. And there's no way for them to improve or change that then. Which is very frustrating. Another factor, which I only discovered after Eliana was born, was the great percentage of false positives in prenatal screening. It's astonishing. Just a few years ago, the New York Times published an article diving into the subject. So, a lot of studies have found that the results of these prenatal screenings are wrong 90% of the time. Now, this is for the most common genetic conditions that they test for. 90% of the time, they're wrong whenever they come back with a positive. To quote the article directly, the grave predictions made by those newer tests are usually wrong. Nonetheless, on product brochures and test result sheets, companies describe the tests to pregnant women and their doctors as near certain. They advertise them as reliable and highly accurate, offering total confidence and peace of mind. I've often heard it argued that we cannot condemn abortion in the case of prenatal diagnosis, especially severe ones. I tell you that we certainly can. There are 2 points that I'd focus on. First is that these screenings should never be an excuse for abortion because they're highly inaccurate and cannot be trusted. The second point is that even if they were accurate, which they are not, they do not determine the value and the worth of that baby. God has given inherent value to that life by creating him or her in his image. Eliana's worth is not less because she cannot move her legs. It is not less because she was born with 2 holes in her heart and a hole in her lip. She is uniquely and beautifully made by God. She's full of life and love, and she blesses our family by being a part of it. And I also would want to say that even if that initial diagnosis had been accurate, even if Eliana had passed away in the womb or shortly after, or lived with trisomy 18 and severe cognitive impairment, she would have been a blessing to us nonetheless. Every life has value. My husband has often wondered aloud at how many families have missed out on a blessing like Eliana because of the words of men. One thing I think we need to remember as Christians is that our God is good. And if we trust him, if we have faith, then we should be relying on his words more than the words of men. What is faith but the ability to look ahead and know that God is for us and that he loves us? and that any child he sends us is going to be a blessing. So anyway, I want to thank you so much for letting me share our experience with you and our story, and I'm sorry again that I couldn't be there in person.